Hey guys, how you doing? This is JP Saricolia coming to you once again with another episode of Age of Heroes, my podcast. And this is actually a special episode. I normally try to do, or my plan or my desire, it's the goal is to have 3 episodes per week. At least, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that will be the perfect time in the mornings. And I try to stay with that. But sometimes there are some things that happen, news that really are interesting and important, and I want to talk about them. And I think it's the perfect time. And sometimes you may have an extra one. Some weeks I've been doing 2, and it has to do with my schedule, has to do with my work. Although I'm doing this, I'm pretty much doing some stuff on the side as, trying to make ends meet while I'm trying to build this channel. So thank you for every person that supports me financially, whether you do it through Patreon, GoFundMe, or PayPal. Of course, your support really matters to me. Also, link into all the different sites of things that I have on my in my description. Like if you go to Amazon and you purchase any item from Amazon through my links, through my affiliate links, then of course I get a kickback. So definitely, and of course watching the videos, liking the videos, and all that helps me with the ads in YouTube. So thank you very much. If you are really supporting me in any way, shape, or form, you're really supporting me by only being here, watching and liking and commenting and doing all that stuff. Really supports my channel, and my podcast, of course. So thank you very much. But of course, again, there are a lot of things to talk about, and definitely in the gaming industry, a lot of things. Great news for a lot of course, retro gamers like myself, old dogs like myself. I love retro gaming. I think retro gaming goes beyond just people that grew up in that era, but also the young generation. I think it's all about preservation, about preserving a lot of those games we grew up, and really giving them to the next generation, to young kids, and really enjoying. Definitely have fun when my nephew comes around. Sometimes I get the chance to play with him a little bit when I get a chance. And we play some of the older games, and he seems to love them. It's definitely, they're easy to learn. They can be addictive, but also they're challenging. And I think there's something that we love about old games. Yeah, there was a challenge in them. So I want to talk about it in this podcast today. In this special podcast, I want to talk about this. So, we can get to know some things are happening in the gaming industry that are really important. So I want to go back to Capcom Home Arcade. As you probably noticed in my previous podcast, I talk about it on Wednesday. There's a lot of things that are happening for this arcade. A lot of, there's a lot of talk online. There's a lot of people very loving the system. I can tell you one thing. I'm on the fence. I love the idea. I love the concept. Actually, I love the console, or in this case, the arcade stick on the 2 sticks, so the little deck. I really love the deck. Definitely looks very, very cool. I would say it's going to be a collectible item. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of hackers really breaking things up and adding it to other different things and other games, which are very happy. But I remember there's a lot of conversations online for a very important reason, and that's something that I even noticed when I was talking about it, but I didn't really cross my mind until later. And of course, there's a lot of conversations. Now, if you go to the website of this place, and I have the link for you, and if you go through the description of everything else, everything seems cool and dandy. Everything they're going to offer here, of course, the 16 games. What I already mentioned that I'm not really crazy about is this very small number, but I'm sure that they're going to add, hackers going to add more games to this. So everything is fine. It's micro USB power, HDMI output, Wi-Fi on board, which is pretty good. You can go to online leaderboards, and of course the price is a bit steep on all of that. Now there's a part where it says authentic gaming. In a section, it says featuring a pair of competition class Sanwa stakes with 8-way GT and Y directional gates. So definitely that's cool. Love that. It's just going to have very high end, very professional parts, which is very cool. These are the type of parts that you see in Japanese arcades, which is definitely some of the greatest. But then it says the 16 pre-installed games are from the original Capcom CPS-1 and CPS-2. Those are the systems created by Capcom to play these games on the arcades. Arcade ROMs with emulation provided by FV Alpha. Deliver an authentic and accurate arcade experience exclusively for the Capcom Home Arcade. Now, FE Alpha. Now, for those who do not know what FE Alpha means, FE Alpha, it's a emulation ROM. It's an emulation system that is actually it was developed in the aftermath, or not in the aftermath. It was based on the in this case Final Burn. Final Burn system that was used back in the early 2000s to emulate a lot of the Sega games, a lot of Sega Genesis stuff. So it was created with the purpose of emulation, for license emulation. So it's that was Final Burn. Of course, Final Burn Alpha, it's pretty much a offshoot of that, and that was created with main source code, which is pretty much unlicensed, and it was used and added to be able to emulate past just the Sega games. It was, and that's when you start seeing CPS1, CPS2 game. It has been used to emulate a lot of, in this case, retro games from Sega, from all sorts of systems. It's one of the most accurate, most popular, and most effective emulators that exist out there. And of course, it has some main core source code that makes it even better in the way that it develops. It is constantly being developed by the community. Now, the thing with the Alpha Core, and you can go to the website, I have the link for that. One of the things of the license that they have is that you may not sell, and I'm going on the license on their website. You may not sell, lease, rent, or otherwise seek to gain monetary profit from FB Alpha. And of course, this created a big backlash, and it's a lot of conversations online to the point that even the administrator of this website, whose name is Barry Harris, that's his name, that goes by that name on Twitter, he posted that FB Alpha, and I have the link for that too, has been licensed by Capcom Home Arcade. Of course, a lot of people responded to this because, of course, FB Alpha has been developed, is constantly being developed, not necessarily by the same people. It's been developed, and this is a community thing. A lot of people, a lot of developers have added improvements into the system over the time, and because it's a community thing, it's constantly being transformed, and there's new source code, there's new things added to improve the quality and the performance of it. So a lot of people are saying, of course, nobody asked every developer that has been part of this to really pitch in. So who is gaining monetary gain out of this? Is the FB Alpha administrator? Is the people that work there? But a lot of people are saying the legality of this. So I'm going through all of that. I went through there's a couple of YouTube channels already talking about it. People that are very well known and respected within the community of emulators and homebrewers. And everybody's talking about it. And I want to share my opinion, what I think about the whole matter, because I review everything. I read the legality of it. I went through the license, and of course I have gone through the website. It still shows there that is the FE Alpha is the pretty much what they're using. They haven't removed it, and of course you go to the license, and you go through the license. Of course it says FE, and some of the parts of the license that you may not sell, lease, I already read that, rent, or otherwise seek to gain monetary profit from FB Alpha. Of course, you must make public any changes you make to the source code. That's something that homebrewers have done so far. You must include verbatim the full text of this license. That's always been provided. You may not distribute binaries which support games with copyright dates less than 3 years old. You may not distribute FB Alpha with ROM images unless you have the legal right to distribute them. And that point brings me to the same thing. Now, every person that has produced, and they have used FB Alpha for a lot of different systems. They have used them for the ad games, have used it for all their systems. The NeoGeo X used it. Many homebrewers, many even so stuff that has been sold, pretty much online, comes with a lot of FB Alpha. Use the basis of FB Alpha to pretty much support or emulate a lot of these games. Of course, they never advertise it, but Capcom is advertising this, which a lot of people are offended by it, because technically they're taking advantage of all this this case developers in one way. They are not getting paid for this. However, and this is my point of view after going to reviewing everything here, in the first place, FB Alpha has never ever was ever created or was taking permission or took permission from Capcom in the first place to really develop this system or to emulate this system. So a lot of this distribution has been done through the community, supposedly at no, for no monetary gain. But of course, we know that some people have taken advantage of it, and some companies like AdGames and other companies to take advantage of it. Of course, even though you might say that it's morally wrong what they're doing, in the sense of Capcom really utilizing something, they say or they claim that they're using it under permission, but a lot of people are involved in the process. I'm not getting any money out of it. In the first place, Capcom owns CPS-1 and CPS-2 hardware, in this case, the systems, the architecture of the system. So the reason many of these companies, it's been over almost 20 years, since the creation of Final Burn and, of course, Final Burn Alpha. And, they have been used without really permission. People have been creating, advancing, moving without really asking permission. Technically, they're doing unlicensed products. They are doing an unlicensed product, whether they do it for monetary gain or not. It's still on license under Capcom. Now, Capcom using this, a lot of people are saying, well, it is morally wrong. And technically, yes, it is morally wrong that Capcom is taking advantage of the work of a lot of these people, but at the same time, it's not illegal. And that's something that you need to remember. It is not illegal for Capcom to use something that, in the end, is parts of its, it has its proprietary value to them, because they own a lot of these games. They have licensed many of these games, and many of these games they're paying for those licenses. Of course, Capcom is not technically the one developing or creating this, because even though they sell it, actually it's in this case, that's the name, Koch Media. Koch Media, depending how you pronounce it. Sounds very iffy. But in any case, they're the ones actually creating this game, and they're the ones selling this, of course, this console thing, this plug and play. And of course, the licenses for Capcom. Kind of like AdGames licensed for a while, for a long time, the stuff for Sega. So, it is really a catch-22 here, because, people can try to jump, and I see, they go in on Twitter, and all people are battling this on Twitter, say, well, there's a legality, there's ramifications, you can sue, but how can you sue? This is the thing. Nobody can really sue Capcom for this, because, first of all, nobody has the money to confront the lawyers of Capcom. But first of all, from the first place, Capcom has the money to really tear you down. Just think about what Nintendo did to all these people that were, pretty much distributing a lot of ROMs for free. Remember that the idea of everything, you cannot do it, for monetary gain, but a lot of people took advantage and have taken advantage of this. So the fact is that whether they talk with one person that runs the FE Alpha system, or the person that really manages the whole thing in the first place, of the website, if they say it's good to go, it's good to go. I'm all for that. In my opinion, I think it brings at least some light into the work of a lot of these developers, and a lot of people might be butthurt about it, but at the same time, you're not working directly with Capcom. You are working with the work of Capcom. As a person that I'm into statue collecting, I understand, and I'm very familiar with pretty much the underground system of unlicensed products. And ultimately, a company has the right to pretty much cease and desist, to really send you a notice of cease and desist. And Capcom hasn't really not done it like Nintendo constantly do it for FB Alpha. And ultimately, they take in, like everyone else is taking advantage of it, and they maybe selling it to the public. Yes, it might not be morally correct, but it is not illegal, and they have the right, and ultimately nobody can really fight it. I know it's going to create a lot of speculation. A lot of people are going to be upset. But ultimately, I think, there's nothing can be done. Capcom, whether it's Capcom or Koch Media taking advantage of the situation, ultimately, people have taken advantage of Capcom products for many years. So in the end, who is the one that is guilty? I think everyone has some type of guilt in the matter. Now, moving to another thing, of course, let's move to that. It's anything. It's going to create a lot of conflict, of course, for a lot of people for quite some time. But there's nothing really we can do about it. So let's just move to another thing. And also another great news. SNK, of course, they had in Seoul, Korea, they have a board meeting for a lot of investors. And they were reviewing, that was on April 16th, so it was just a few days ago. they were talking about, in this case, the director of NeoGeo, the president of the NeoGeo, was really looking back and seeing all the good things, and definitely they were really impressed about the reception of the NeoGeo Mini. So the SNK is planning to move forward, actually, with the creation of newer consoles for the NeoGeo line. In this case, the NeoGeo 2 and the NeoGeo 3. That's how they named them. Of course, this doesn't mean that they're planning to bring another NeoGeo Mini or a second version of the NeoGeo Mini, because people were thinking about, but they're thinking and planning to develop newer versions of the NeoGeo systems for the future, a NeoGeo 2 and NeoGeo 3 for COM consoles. Of course, they're talking about that in this case, they are going to develop this. They're not going to be, I would say, just like the Mini. They're going to be, they call it semi-open platforms, which means that you are able, also they're going to come with included games. They're going to include some games in them. You're able to buy more games and add more games, whether you do it digitally, whether you do it online, or whether you do it physically, we don't know. But with the idea of semi-open, of course, they were not really clear. We don't know if you are able to actually use those and play older games into this new system, kind of like some of the games that we have seen that you can actually play ROMs, but also you can play with actual hardware and actual, in this case, cartridges. So it is unknown, but the thing is this, they're working in the plan. I'm really excited for that. I really like the idea of something that really you can play your existing games, which are very expensive to find, but also you're able to play and download more games into it, because I'm more into it. I can say the Mini was a great idea, but in this case, the delivery was poor. The quality was not as great on the Mini, and a lot of people complain about it when you compare it to other versions of the same games, particularly other emulated games that have been used on some other, in this case, the PS4, the Switch, and the Xbox One. Those are much better in quality and to the ones that you got in this little console. But it is good. But also they talk about that they have a new Metal Slug in development for consoles. It's in production. And they didn't specify if it's going to be 2D or 3D, as you know, because the industry has moved from 2D to 3D, and it's getting harder to get people to work in 2D systems, because you need a specific type of artist, and you have to hand draw all of this. So it's getting harder. So a lot of people are assuming or speculating, and I think it would be a great idea to see a different version of Metal Slug. I love Metal Slug, but I think everything that we have seen so far, even Metal Slug, what is that, Double X, it was kind of like an old duck, like a strange duck in the middle of a newer things, when it was, of course, developed for the Xbox 360 and the PS3, or the PSP, I'm sorry. So definitely I would like to see something more in 3D, like they have done with, in this case, with Samurai Showdown that is coming, I think, later this year, and of course, King of Fighters. So definitely would like to see that. Now, also they announced that there's a King of Fighters 15 that they are developing, and they're developing for the Unreal Engine. So they're not going to use the in-house engine, SNKs, but they're going to use Unreal Engine to make it even more faster or better graphics and all that. And it's planned for later in 2020. So I'm really excited because I'm a big King of Fighters fan. I haven't really played much the latest King of Fighters. I need to get into it, but I have played pretty much since the beginning of King of Fighters 1994. I play it in the arcades. I played 95. Those are the games that I love the most, and I've played since then. For many years, I've played many King of Fighters, and I still play King of Fighters. So definitely I love that, and really good. Now in the news, and I think this is some of the best news we got, is the Sega Genesis Mini. As I mentioned in my previous podcast, I'm really excited for that. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to add it. This is one that I have no questions about it. I'm going to add. I was never really the type of person that was on one side. Of course, you always have Nintendo and you have Sega. And a lot of people were on one side. I never really cared much about sides because I played both when I was a kid, and I love both. And I think both have their strengths and their weaknesses. And, I'm not the type of person. I can tell you I was more inclined to the Genesis than the Nintendo when I was a kid, but Nintendo also had its own games that were definitely phenomenal, and only for that system. And definitely they announced 40 games for the Sega Genesis. I'll have the links below again for the website and all that. So there's 40 games for this plug and play system, which is Mini. And of course, there was a lot of backlash last year because ad games was involved in the process, and nobody really cared about ad games anymore. And of course, Sega decided to redraw everything, and they move into development in-house. And of course, the system looks pretty cool. They already presented, they already showcases in Japan. It comes with a three button, the wired 3-button control pad, which it's okay. I would have preferred for them to have the 6 pad, but I'm sure there's gonna be other ways later on that they're gonna add those. If a lot of hackers are going to hack this system for sure, and they're gonna add more games into it. But the games that they come out of the box are great. Now we have 20. They revealed just recently 10 more, and I'm gonna go through the list. Of course, they got Echo the Dolphin, which I've never been crazy about Echo the Dolphin. I've never been my kind of thing, but it's a classic. A lot of people love it was a trilogy of them. I think there were 3 of them or 4, I don't remember. Of course, they got Castlevania Bloodlines, which is definitely a great game. Space Harrier 2, which we love. Shining Force, a lot of people love Shining Force, never been too much into it. Dr. Robotnik, Mean Bean Machine, I love that game. It's really addictive. We got Toe Jam and Earl, we already knew that. We got Comic Zone, which is a classic, and it seems to be all the time in every type of revision. Sonic the Hedgehog is a must. Sonic is always a must. Alter Beast, a classic as well. Then you got Gunstar Heroes, which I was very surprised because Gunstar Heroes hasn't come in any compilation. You were able to purchase it on the 360, which I have, on the PS3 as a standalone game, and I love those games. And also on the Wii, but now it's coming, of course, in this compilation, which I'm very excited. Now, the thing that really excites me the most is Castle of Illusion and the World of Illusion, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck. Those games haven't been released. Castle of Illusion was released, was given for free, the original, when you pre-order the Castle of Illusion, the new version for the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and it was given to you as a gift if you pre-order. I didn't pre-order, so I never got it, and they never got to sell them, and of course they're no longer for sale in I think in the PS3 or the Xbox 360, which was a downer. So now that you're able to get it, because I don't have another way. I do have it, but in ROMs and on licensed ROM, but definitely I'm very excited because we were able to play it again. These 2 games it really excite me, at least for me, because I really loved them when playing when I was young. And of course you got Thunder Force 3, which I love. You got Super Fantasy Zone, which I have played and also play on the Wii. Love that. I love this version. They got Shinobi 3. I love Shinobi 3. It's the easiest to play, but it's the most. The Shinobi 1, of course, and 1 and 2, they were really hard in comparison. Shinobi 3 was easier, but it was more perfected in the way it is fun to play. So I'm really excited for that. Streets of Rage 2, of course, you have to have it. I would love to have the 3 collection of Streets of Rage, but 3, if you have to choose between the 3, of course, the number 2 would be the one, and it's coming with it. Now, they also announced Earthworm Jim, which, it's a classic, and I love. But then you got Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which also is another classic, definitely a great one. Contra, Hard Corps, and of course, Landstalker. So, definitely I can tell you one thing, there's a lot of good things coming for this system, and this is only 20 games. We still got 20 more to go, so I'm really excited. Excited for this. This is coming out in September 19, which pretty much a few months down the road, and I'm really looking forward to it. I love mini systems, particularly when they're done well, and the fact that Sega is involved in this process and all of this, and I really love the way it is. I wasn't really too crazy about the way they developed in this case NeoGeo minis, because I don't know, it was a bit iffy of the way they did it. I don't know, it wasn't what I wanted to be, because I feel it's not the console itself, it's just a representation of the arcade, and then you have the little the quality wasn't that great when it was compared to other things, and in this case Nintendo did a better job. Even the controllers feel like the real thing. They feel like the real thing. Of course, it's a smaller console, you have all the games that came with it. I was able to add more ROMs into it, so definitely have the full collection that I want, all the games I want. I love those little things, and I'm gonna go for Sega Genesis because it is developed by Sega. Everything looks so far everything looks so good, and I'm looking forward to it. So definitely there's a lot of great news in the gaming for the retro world. I can tell you one thing, I love retro games. I love anything that has to do with mini consoles. I'm just a sucker for that kind of stuff. I like the fact because you can see the preservation of these games, that they continue on. Of course, some people might be a little offended or butthurt about certain things that some of these companies are doing, but let's not forget, these companies brought these franchises to life in the first place. They're the ones that created this in the first place, and a lot of people have taken advantage of what they did. And although I'm all for emulation, emulation, and I'm always going to support emulation. I think it's a great way to preserve a lot of games that they don't have a way to come out. The fact that, these systems of the companies are going back and revising this and allowing ways, or giving us ways for us to replay those games through these systems, I'm all for it. And of course, some are, a little crazy, like the Capcom Home Arcade, because I think the price is too much for only 16 games. But it is an idea. Try to buy an arcade. Try to buy one of those games in an arcade. You're gonna pay more than that. That's for sure. So definitely, it is what it is, and it's a great idea. And what Sega's doing too, I love that. You're getting all of this, and they did it right. What I like about Sega is that they could have done just simply license it again to add games like they have done always, but they went back to the drawing table and they decide to redo everything from the start to make it right. And I can give props to Sega for doing something like this, to really caring and catering to the community, catering to the fans in this way. And I hope all the companies, including Capcom, Konami, and all these companies can find ways to really cater to the community and to the consumers, because there's money to be found in these areas. Sometimes, like you see nowadays, a lot of times the conversation is, well, there's no money in this, there's no money in that, so companies move into certain other systems like free-to-play type of systems, so they move into the DLC, loot boxes kind of thing, which that's been pretty much the direction of the industry for so long. But we're seeing changes, like I mentioned before. Now we can see more first-party developers that creating games or developing games with single campaign stories alone, nothing to do with multiplayer, which is come back into basics, and I like that. And the fact that retro, is still strong and it's still growing, and we're still seeing all of this is good. And some people might agree this, argue, say, well, we're paying for the same game time and time and time again. Yes, but yes, time evolves as generations comes and generations go. Of course, we need to keep up with the industry, with the technology. We need something new for the new systems we have, for the new TVs we have, HDMI TVs, all these 4K versions, all of this. We need something that really stays true with the times. And I feel that all these plug and play systems are really catering to that, because it's hard to preserve a lot of these games, intact after so many years. Cartridges are not meant to last forever, and a lot of these older systems, they play in older TVs and CR TVs and all that stuff. They are not meant to last forever. And of course, we need to move with the times, and there's so many lists of games, an immense list of games that they need to still, I would like to see develop. There's great games out there in the arcade world that I would like to see again, one way, shape, or form with any of the new consoles. But what is your opinion? I would like to hear it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification button if you're watching this on YouTube. You're listening to the podcast. Please share the podcast. Please subscribe to this case to the podcast in any of the platforms that you can find me on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Castbox. You can find me on Spotify, SoundCloud, you name it. You can find me anywhere. And also, please follow me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, in this case, Facebook page. All the links are down below. And again, please consider supporting me financially. Through your financial support, I'm able to create more content that is, geared towards you and, this community. So once again, God bless you. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.